Hello, everyone. I'm James Frere, host of the Republican Town Hall Meeting channel, and I'm glad to have you here on Channel 12 TV Network. I have a show for you today. On Thursday, the 30th of January, I was invited and went up to the Drake Hotel in Oak Park, Illinois. It was an evening of freedom presented by the Conservative Caucus. Guests were Governor Rod Blagojeveich, Jim Foff, president of TCC, which is the Conservative Caucus, Jessica Jackson, co-founder of Chicago Flips Red, and Kash Kelly, an American patriot, 36 J6 political prisoner. I had the opportunity to meet Governor Rod Blagojeveich and the opportunity to interview him. So I am going to play that interview and go from there. Oak Brook, Illinois, and thank you for being here, Governor. And tell me about what you want to do with the GOP party and what you think the small differences are between the GOP and the Democrats.
Well, thank you very much, Jim, for your service to our country, by the way.
You're welcome.
I have warm memories of Peoria. I had the experience of being governor for 6 years, and I know I'm the only governor in Illinois history to have run the Peoria 15K race that you guys hold every year.
Right, they do.
Like in July. It's really hot. That was 9.3 miles. I did that in like 80 minutes as the sitting governor of Illinois, and I challenged the current governor of Illinois to do the same.
I don't think you'll ever make it.
But to answer your question, look, I'm very grateful for so many things in life, and above them is this country that we live in is the greatest country in the world, and it's a sad thing to see what's been done to America over the last several decades. It's been little by little, but slow but sure, where establishment politicians in both parties have been screwing the people, and they've been serving themselves in the backs of the people. And so I call myself a Trumpocrat because I'm a strong supporter of President Trump and the political realignment that he's leading, changing the Republican Party into a party that's actually on the side of everyday people, working people, the people that the Democratic Party used to be for, but have since abandoned and shunned aside so they can represent the elites, Hollywood movie stars and Silicon Valley billionaires, as well as Wall Street financiers. So I'm excited about the things that are happening in American politics today that President Trump is so instrumental in bringing about. And I'm just happy and delighted to have a chance to play what little role I can to be helpful in this process. To me, it's not really about Democrats or Republicans. It's really about doing what's right for America and doing what's right for the people.
Yes, and God bless for Trump. I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, if it wasn't, I think this country was going to go really downhill.
It was going downhill.
Yes.
And, he's going to turn it around and make America great again.
Right. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for talking to me, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, and God bless you.
God bless you too.
Jim.
Well, again, I want to thank Governor Rod Blagojeveich for that interview. But at the end of it, I thought it was over, and I went ahead and stopped the recording, and that's where you heard him say Jim. So he asked me, did I stop it? He goes, yeah, go ahead and turn it back on for recording. I did not know what he was going to say, but I'm going to play this clip.
How can I say this? One of our more significant American presidents, and in so many ways a great president, Richard Nixon, used to measure his politics and his messaging by asking the question, will it play in Peoria?
Exactly.
And so I want to say about you, Jim, you play in Peoria and in Illinois and in the United States.
That's what I want to do, Governor. Thank you.
God bless you.
God bless you too. So that was a shocker when Governor Rod Blagojeveich did that. Now we're going to go on to the whole event. The whole event is recorded. It is not edited, not censored, and not cut. It's about an hour-long event with all the speakers, a lot of good information that I put out there. And I enjoyed it. I'm glad I was there, and I hope you enjoy it too.
Who is the president of the Conservative Caucus, which is the oldest conservative organization in the country. So a little bit about Jim. Jim's career spans over 30 years in local and national politics. Chief of Staff of the Colorado House Republican Caucus, President of the Colorado Family Institute, and a National Representative for Family Policy Councils that focus on the family. Love it. Jim served as Chief of Staff for two different congressmen, Congressman Tom Massey and Congressman Tim Hulskamp. Jim has won campaigns at every level and is a respected national grassroots leader, and I'm privileged to work under him, and I'm so grateful that he hired me. We'll see how this goes. This is our first event together, so it's been a huge success so far, and we're so grateful for all of our sponsors. You know, if anybody sees some of the people that are sitting in these chairs, like Anthony, there's a few people that have sponsorships, their names are on the chairs, so you might want to come up here. So I'll introduce Marcus first. Mark is going to do the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good evening, everybody. How are you? Are you guys tired of losing? I'll be your MC tonight, if that's okay. I'm Mark Vargas, Newsmax columnist, owner of a very small publication called Illinois Review. Have any of you guys heard of Illinois Review? I'm owner and editor-in-chief of Illinois Review and the new co-host of the Stone Zone with Roger Stone. You guys know who Roger Stone is, right? But I'm so glad to have you guys here, and we are going to begin with an opening prayer. So allow me to say a prayer. Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for your love, your grace, and your mercy. Father, we pray for your continued protection upon President Donald Trump and his administration as they lead our country. We pray for leaders, even if they're on the other side and we don't necessarily believe in their political beliefs, we pray for them as well. Father, we pray that you would bless this time this evening. I pray that you bless the conversation, that your favor would be upon us. We thank you for all that you continue to do for us. In Jesus' name, amen. Are there any veterans in the room? Please stand. Please stand for our veterans. We love our veterans. And it's because of you and all the other veterans and our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, and yes, Space Force, or Space Forceans. We are in a now freer country. And we see a little glory back there, so everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The reason that we don't like to keep things separated, but we've got reserved seating because I want you to thank the individuals sitting here in the front rows, our sponsors. And they have done so much to make this event possible. So when you see the individuals, Paragon Freight and so many others, our dear friend Dan Greenman CPA, these guys have made all of this possible. And so we want to thank all of our sponsors. So everybody give our sponsors a big round of applause. There are so many different sponsors and people that have contributed to this event. It is incredible, but we've got a great program for you because the purpose of this trip is about turning Illinois red and actually putting together a plan and a proposal in place to support President Donald Trump and the Make America Great Again and Make America Healthy Again movement. We call it MAHAGA, right? MAHAGA. But I'm going to introduce the man who's helped make all of this possible because of his vision, his direction, and his leadership. Janelle Town. Janelle is the development director for the Conservative Caucus. Janelle, thank you. Jacqueline Garrettson. Jacqueline, where are you? Jacqueline and Janelle have put countless hours into making this event a total success. But if I ever were to run for office, and if I did, I'd win very bigly, believe me, very bigly. There's only one man that I would want to run my campaign, and that is Jim Taft. He's the president of the Conservative Caucus. And I say that because what's unique about Jim that we don't necessarily see in Illinois is this guy really knows, a political consultant and advisor who really knows how to win and has a record of victories. Not just at the local level, but at the national level. He is a known, nationally respected grassroots leader. He has served as a chief of staff to two United States congressmen, Congressman Thomas Massey and Congressman Tim Huelskamp. Jim, in working with Congressman Huelskamp, helped lay the framework and the groundwork and built the foundation for creating what's now known as the House Freedom Caucus in Washington, D.C. Jim has worked for the Colorado Republican Party as chief of staff. He served as a senior executive and advisor to grassroots organizations with focus on the family. He's an unabashed, pro-life conservative who loves America. Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Taft.
I aspire to one thing in life, and that's to get my Donald Trump impression down, as well as Mark Harris. It's not going to happen. Never going to happen. Listen, this is a really critical time in American history. I was just sharing with folks prior to this. This is probably, other than the Washington administration, our very first president, and the Lincoln administration saving us from the breakup of this country during the Civil War, a great Illinoisan, a man of character, and this is the land of Lincoln we're in, of course. This is going to be the most consequential American presidency in American history, certainly of our lifetime. And why is that? We just found ourselves on the verge of going third world, literally. Like, it's kind of funny when you say it, because it doesn't seem sometimes to resonate in a way that we think it would. Like when we're talking third world politics, we think of things like Idi Amin, Rhodesia. You think of the Houthis and the Tutsis killing each other in Africa. That's what you think of with third world. Folks, I gotta tell you, I don't know that it would have been precisely that bad, but it could become that bad in a country like this. I look at what's going on in Brazil right now, and there's literally an authoritarian dictatorship being underway right there, out of a Supreme Court that is just deciding to throw people in jail, to shut down social media, to put criminals who are ineligible to run for office back on the ballot. The current president, Lula, that's the case. And you've got people in exile here in the United States, or else because if they went back to Brazil, they'd be thrown in prison immediately. We were on the verge of that in this country. I don't know if we realized how close we came. Now, it wouldn't have happened had Kamala Harris won this month, but it would be very close down the road. We saw a bit of freedom that took place and reemerged when Elon Musk purchased Twitter back in 2022. And give him credit, that's $44 billion that immediately went down the drain. Now, I think he's going to recover it all, and I think he's going to be good in the long run, because he does know how to run companies. But I'm going to tell you, if that hadn't happened, I'm not saying that Donald Trump got elected because of Elon Musk, that's not my point. Donald Trump got elected because of Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is an amazing politician, a transformational figure in American history. But that helped lay the groundwork that we needed so that we could support Donald Trump and do the work that needed to be done. So the American people could hear what was actually happening. And so Elon Musk deserves a whole lot of credit and much of our thanks. But what did happen is this, and this is the miracle. The reason Donald Trump is so transformational is oddly for two main reasons. He has the money to back up the onslaught that came his way, to handle the legal fees involved with it, to be able to support himself and his family. Because, you know, I look at Kash Kelly, I mean, you cannot, these J6 people, like why did so many of them plead guilty? And some folks had said, oh, that was kind of weak. Well, you look down the face of hundreds of thousands of dollars of legal fees and tell me how you're going to try to figure all that out. And, you know, I'm not saying that everybody made all the right decisions, but they were in a total corner because the federal government abused its power to threaten their lives. They literally threatened their lives. That's why people like Kash should be praised for the courage of dealing with this situation and paying the, ultimately the price for it. But Donald Trump had the financial foundation for himself to be able to do what he did. That's one. He had the ability to make the case because he had been living in New York City media and national media ultimately for many years. Obviously applauded and praised in many ways, but he also faced many, many things that caused him to get pushed back on his heels from time to time, and he stood firm and stood in there. He had to try to break through bureaucracy and so forth, to build a building. Took a lot of courage, direction, and thought. All this culminated in a guy who knew how to work in the media and communicate a message. Okay, lastly, and this one is very, very important, he had the courage to face the very real threat that he was going to be thrown in prison. Looked it in the face, knowing the loss could be huge, and deciding never to give up. I don't know of any Republicans that are capable of withstanding what he was doing. And I know a lot of Republicans. I've been involved in DC politics and national politics in some level for the last 30 years. And I'm telling you, there's no one like Donald Trump in that regard. But here's the thing that really makes what we're about to embark upon so amazing to me. Here's a man who humbly understood that the fight was not just about him, but that it was about you, and he humbly understands that, asserted it verbally, lived it out in what he actually did. So that now, it's not going to be some arrogant dictator type, trying to take the reins of power. It's actually very Washington-esque in a way. George Washington could have become monarch of the United States easily. I mean, people wanted him to do that. People were pushing him to do that. And he humbly set the thing down and acted in a humble manner during what he did. Donald Trump is doing that right now. So I just want to say, that's going to lead to something amazing. Look at the results. Nearly 300 executive orders. You've got a group of nominees that are winning who no one said could win. We just had another good day for most of them today, although Tulsi Gabbard's kind of maybe still a little bit on the bubble, but she did a great job. But this is also going to be a good team that's going to change the executive branch. And then the next job is to go after what Congress needs. So, to finish at least this portion of what I have to say, we have a lot to be thankful for because we have a chance. We have to put the same effort in now that we did put in to get Donald Trump elected. And I know my organization, we put in about $7.6 million we chipped in to try to help get Donald Trump elected in targeted states, targeted messaging to millions of voters. But listen, we're glad we did that. But what is going to make the difference is what you do. Now, hopefully we can provide help and support and leadership in certain ways. But it's what every one of you have done to get Illinois very close. Like Donald Trump's never been this close. I mean, Republicans never been this close. So Donald Trump came very close in Illinois for the first time in a long time. That's up to that's you guys. This is what we're about, why we're having this event today, to talk about these issues. Because it is people like you on the ground that ultimately win this. That can be inspired by great leaders like Donald Trump, but really are inspirations yourself because you actually take the next step. It's one thing for Donald Trump to make an assertion, it's another thing for you to do it. That's what we're about. This is what I've been doing for all my years in politics. I'm inspired by people like Governor Blagojeveich, who did that as well. He's a man that believes in grassroots politics, in believing in the people. That's what we are working toward. That's what this meeting is about. We got a lot more to talk about as time goes on. With that, I'm going to pass it back to Mark.
Mahaga. Our first guest speaker, and by the way, tomorrow is going to be an event, Grassroots, where Jim is going to address and work with you to put together an actual plan, includes fundraising and grassroots and how the Conservative Caucus, who spent nearly $8 million to help elect Donald Trump, a plan tomorrow. You're seeing flyers. Jacqueline Garretson, State Director for the Conservative Caucus, there's flyers, but I encourage everyone to sign up if you want to come tomorrow. Jim wants to pack it out. It's going to be some really great stuff. 7 p.m. tomorrow evening. We'll send you all the information. But without much further ado, Jessica Jackson is a hero. Co-founder of Chicago Flips Red. No one agitates Brandon Johnson more. Stand up. No one agitates Brandon Johnson more than Jessica Jackson. So much so that a man named Donald J. Trump sent her a signed photograph that said, "Thank you and I love you, Donald J. Trump." She could speak for a long time and we'd still stay here and listen to her, but we've got about 10 minutes if that's all right, Jessica. But ladies and gentlemen, Jessica Jackson.
Good evening, everybody. And as Mark has said, my name is Jessica Jackson, and I am one of the founders of Chicago Flips Red. And before I get started, it's only right and befitting that I introduce the rest of the people that's here from Chicago Flips Red as well, because we put in the work, and it's a collective effort. So the first person that I want to give introduction to is Zoe Lee. Zoe Lee, in fact, is the first person that, based on the fact that her mother was dealing with the issue of property, and the fact that we couldn't get any results from the Democratic Party, in a public building commissioners meeting, a very small meeting, where Brandon Johnson is there and Tony Preckwinkle, who's the president of Cook County, is there. Well, in that meeting, Zoe Lee told Brandon Johnson to his face that if he didn't settle her mother's case, she was gonna flip this red. Being like-minded, at the same time, I was fighting for my mother's estate. My mother passed in 2016. And my mother had all her ducks in a row. She had an authentic will. She made sure she died with no debt. She had a 3-flat building over on the south side of Chicago that was paid for since I was 15 years old. Only for her to pass on and her estate go to probate, because Illinois state law says that even if your property, if the person has a will, and even if the property is paid for, and even if a person has no debt, if real estate is involved, then it has to go through probate, and that's how Cook County gets their grubby little hands on your property. And from that, I joined with that same mentality when we kept coming to City Hall, and I kept asking for help. I kept asking Mayor Johnson to help me. I kept asking Tony Preckwinkle to help me. I kept asking the aldermen to help me. I kept asking the commissioners to help me. I kept asking everybody to help me because they were trying to steal my property. And I knew for a fact that it wasn't just me. They were trying to steal black people's property. That's what they were doing, and that's what they were doing for a long time. Joined in that same mentality. That if I can't get no help down here from the Democratic Party, then I knew what was necessary. And what was necessary was to get change at the federal level. And we had to get the change at the federal level. That there was no way that they was going to keep my hands tied. There was no way that me knowing that the rights that I have as an American, that somebody's going to tell me that there's nothing that you can do for me when you're trying to create that right in front of me. So I too said, we're going to flip Chicago red. We're going to flip it red. And what does it mean to flip something? To flip something means to turn something over with a quick and sudden movement. And that's what we know we needed to do. We had to move quickly because the Democratic Party was killing Chicago. The Democratic Party was killing Illinois. The Democratic Party was killing America. And this is our country too. This is our country. This is our country. Without further ado, because I don't want my time to run out, but what I do want to make real clear, and we're going to call you Rod B, because I don't know how to say all those last names. But what I want you to know is that I listened to your interview with Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan because we saw that I was on the program. And if I'm going to get on the stage with somebody and I'm going to be on a flyer with somebody, I need to know what they're about. So I listened to your interview. And I'm going to tell you. I was like, yeah, that's what's up. That's what's up. Number one, he identified with the corruption of public officials here in the state of Illinois. Chicago has had the reputation of being one of the most corrupt cities, the number one corrupt city in America for a very long time. And Illinois is also known for being very corrupt. And when you said about the public corruption and the judicial system being corrupt, my take on that is this. First of all, I did prison ministry for 20 years. And I know how it is, even though people used to ask me, how can you do prison ministry and you've never been to prison? I did prison ministry because I understand what it is to be in bondage. And I understand what it is to be in any type of bondage. It can be mental bondage, emotional bondage, financial bondage, spiritual bondage, bondage. And I know that God is able to take anybody out of that bondage. And that was the message. That was the message. And so what I'm going to do, you don't know it, but I know it, and God knows it. I'm going to work with you, and I'm going to work with Kash on prison reform. And the other members of Chicago Flip Red that are here before my time runs out, I have to recognize them. Because we got a good team. And a lot of people have always said, they always told me and Zoe when we first started coming down to City Hall about how we got to get a lot of people. We got to get a lot of people. That's the problem. It's just y'all too. We got to get a lot of people. And my response to that was always, Jesus had 12 disciples. Yes. Not 12 million. And God has given me some beautiful people to work with. I want to acknowledge Danielle Carter, known as Danny C. Matter of fact, Danny, come up here. Zoe, come up here. Come up here. David Mason, come up here, David. And we have some honorary members with us. We got Afro Elite. That's our social media man. Where is it? We got Doris Lewis. Doris Lewis, she's special because as we continue to position ourselves as Black Americans in Chicago and reposition ourselves in the Republican Party, one thing that we need to be mindful of is all the things and all the struggles and all the representation that we do not have in certain areas. So Doris Lewis came up with what she called, her and Erica Dunn, called the Contract for Black Chicago. And then there's Anthony Crawford, and he's going to work with us on pushing that Laquan McDonald bill so that some of these politicians can get recalled. Because it's unfair for them to have us like this. And then I want to shout out John H. He got another last name like yours that I'm not going to mess with. But there he is. He looked at our cases when no one else would. Yeah. Because in case you didn't know, it's very hard to get a civil rights attorney. In Illinois, in Chicago, the only type of civil rights cases that they want to take is police shootings. They don't want to deal with the other ways that our rights are being taken. And I wanted to give a shout out to Mark Vargas for allowing me to do that interview. Thank you. Thank you. I want to give a shout out to John Anthony. The support has been tremendous. So we're going to leave you with this. The 14th Amendment, that's near and dear to our hearts. And that 14th Amendment guarantees that we too sing America. Like the great poet Langston Hughes said in his poem. We are Americans. We are Americans as apple pie and baseball. We love this country. We fought for this country. We love this country just as much as you all do, believe it or not. It's in a different way, but it's in every way. Because our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents and our great-great-grandparents, their blood is in that soil. church. We gonna tell you like we say. Turn to your neighbor. Turn to your neighbor. And say, neighbor, oh neighbor, we gonna flip Chicago red. No, I need y'all to do it like how we do it. Y'all did it like how y'all do it. We're gonna flip Chicago red. No, I said, you say neighbor, oh neighbor. You gotta put your into it, alright? Alright, last time. Here we go, you got it? Neighbor, oh neighbor. We gonna flip Chicago, right? God bless you all, and we look forward to working with you guys. And Charlene Marsh, oh please, Charlene Marsh, that's Dolby's mother. That's Dolby's mother. And she's the reason. So we want to give a shout out to Charlene Marsh, and we want to give a shout out to my mother. That's the glory now. To Mary Lou Thomas. She's the reason why. And my grandmother, my namesake, Jessie McQueen. So God bless you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what the Trump MAGA Republican Party looks like. And I've got a saying, and this is for Brandon Johnson and J.B. Pritzker: when we stand up, they stand down. Now I want to invite a man that I consider like my brother, just a little bit darker. But this man, Joe Biden, and the Kamala Harris administration put this man in prison under the most inhumane and horrific conditions for 3 years for exercising his First Amendment rights and walking into the United States Capitol. 3 years. The treatment, and Roger Stone and I talked about this, we interviewed Enrique Tarrio yesterday. The conditions, the prison guards were ordered to treat these gentlemen, men and women, patriots, worse than the child rapists and sexual predators and violent murderers. That's a true story. They were directed to treat them worse. They stripped Kash Kelly. He had nearly 800,000 followers on his social media, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. They stripped him of all of that. They took his way of income and supporting his family. They wanted to break him. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Do you think they broke Kash Kelly? Do you think they broke Kash Kelly? Ladies and gentlemen, another great patriot, Kash Kelly.
We should all go home and get some food now. She did that. No, seriously. I appreciate you guys. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I appreciate it. You said something when you were standing up here, and it's been resonating in my head, man. You said that Kash Kelly and the J6ers deserve all our praise. And I just want to say, man, look, I appreciate that, right? I do. But really, do we? And the reason I say that is, did we do anything different than anybody else would have did that was there that day? As an American, you would have stood up too. We did what was American. This is how it should be the norm. That when we see tyranny, or we see something like that, that was happening in our nation, where our election was corrupted, obviously, fraud, right? Okay. If you see your rights being stepped on as an American in our Constitution, what is your duty? To stand up. So thank you for the praise. But man, let me tell you something. I would just be happy with everybody adopting the ideology of constitutional-based protest. Just like that. For me, there wasn't nothing wrong with what happened on January 6th. They said, what about the police? The police that were brutalized by these violent protesters. Well, what about the police that stood up on a balcony shooting pepper balls at people that were singing God Bless America? They weren't acting as regular good police. We back the true blue. They want the true blue. They almost cursed. They are some messed up police. That's what they are. They was messed up. And then what happened after? They went to people's homes, tear gas through the house, in front of children, wives, elderly people, arrested them and dragged them all the way to DCDOC. That wasn't bad enough. They say on the news, even in Chicago, it was shocking, you know, they put me on the news. And they said, violent white supremacists stormed nation's capital. I had to look at it, I have to, you're right. No, but for real, think about this. They put that on the news and then they realized once they zoomed in, they're like, oh, he's not one of them. Take that down now. And they took it down. You never see me on the news as a violent white supremacist ever again. You know what you saw after that? You know what you saw? They switched it up. They said, violent Latin king, Chicago man storms nation's capital. I said, well, damn, I ain't been a Latin king since I was about 21 years old. I've been a gang activist, keeping kids away from gangs and out the streets and away from drugs. But I get it. And it opened up my eyes to a lot of things that happen in this country and what they do, the trickery that they pull. The media. When we talk about the enemies of the people, the media, not this media, shout out, this is my favorite news network, I watch it every day, just so you guys know. But big media, legacy media, they are the enemy of the people. While people was yelling defund the police, in 2020 I was yelling defund the media. Okay? Defund the media. They're the ones that put out the propaganda. And you see it happen in real time. They took these men that I ended up, I was sweating going to DC. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I'm like, oh man, I saw the news. I'm like, yeah, bring me to DCDOC. They said that's where all the white supremacists is going. Oh, then that's where I gotta go. Okay, so I get there. And I get in the van. I get off of Con Air. That's what they call it. And it was actually Nick Cage. You know, he looked just like Nick Cage. Shout out my man Alex. But yeah, it was like, yo, I'm going here. So I get off and I see this man. He's in cuffs, big old white guy, white beard, white hair. And he goes, hey, Kash Kelly? I'm like, yeah, I'm Kash Kelly. He's like, J6er? I'm like, yeah, I'm J6er. He goes, me too. Kelly Banks, Oath Keeper. I'm like, are you white supremacist? God, no, I'm not a white supremacist. Man, I got grandkids, and I'm my best friends, but there's black people there with us. It's Oath Keepers. I said, for real? And it opened my eyes to a lot of things. When I went to DCDOC and met all these dudes that they told you were white supremacists. Proud Boys. I'm like, I knew that was a lie from the gate. Like, I was a kicking of the chief, I know Enrique, and he's darker than me. He's not white supremacist. You know what I'm saying? So I'm sitting in here, and in real time, we're watching the news. And I see these brothers break down crying. All the Proud Boys that I was locked up with, all the Oath Keepers I was locked up with, those are my brothers to this day. I love them to death. Shout out Kelly Meggs, Ken Harrison, Jeff Watkins. Love them. It works some of them to see themselves on the news as a white supremacist. To where I'm the only black guy in DCDOC at this point, you know, it was the J6. I don't know why the hell that happened. It was just like, all right, everybody else, let them stay in their jail. We're going to take this one and put him over here with them. I don't know why. other than it was God. For me to be able to come home and tell everybody, yo, the narrative that they pushed is a lie. They've been lying. Some of these people served in the military. Shout out Ryan Nichols, who ran into natural disasters, a Marine. They painted him out as some white supremacist from Texas. And he's one of my best friends to this day. Shane Jenkins, a really good brother. Really good brother, he's not a white supremacist. James McGrew served in the Marines in Fallujah, fought in war, had his face blown off a little bit, he got a scar. But he did, he fought for his country. Jeffrey McKillop, highly decorated, Green Beret, 3 Bronze Stars. White supremacists? No. So what I'm here to do, since I've been home from prison, is squash that narrative.
Yeah!
The media use this stuff to make people turn against, and DC DOC, the treatment from all the officers there is black. You got literally like one white dude that works there, and then one white lady that hated us, like she just hated us, right? She was a lieutenant. She was making sure, like, we're gonna make sure that they go through hell. Feed them nothing, like it was bad. And all these officers, when you talk about racism, I never seen reverse racism in action before. I ain't never seen it. I always thought like black people can't be racist. We just can't. It's just impossible. No, I've seen it. And guess what? It wasn't even black people. It was Africans. Like, they was from Africa. I said, hey, brother, I need to go. He said, do not call me your brother. You are a nigga. You know what I'm saying? He said the word. And I'm like, yo, this is what it is, huh? Oh, okay. But they called them, you know, the white slurs that they got for people, they call them every single one of them on a regular. And I'm like, yo, this is crazy. They beat Ryan Sampson in the cell, beat that boy like he stole something, beat him. And then they called it live on media. That's not true. You know, they pepper sprayed the whole unit. That's not true. They didn't do that. That never happened. And they lied. The media lied. And then said, had half of America saying they deserved it. They're insurrectionists. Who you know got charged with insurrection? I didn't. I didn't get insurrection. No one did. It wasn't an insurrection. But the media is the enemy of the people. These crooked politicians. My man Rod said it best. These crooked politicians. These crooked politicians have an agenda to keep America divided. That's what they want. America divided. White people hate the black people. Black people hate the white people. And we're going to keep screwing all of them. That's what their agenda is. Which is why they hate Trump. And this is why so many black people like myself support Trump. Because we see it. I'm like, yo, I've always liked Trump. I went into the news. I started watching them in 2020 or 2019. I'm like, oh, maybe he's racist. And I'm like, no, hold on. That's Big Homie. I did a video in his Trump Tower. That's big cool. But when you get your eyes open to it, and you see, they done came after this man. They tried to throw him in prison. They brought up allegations about his past. They lying on this man, right? That's exactly what they did to me. So I'm here today to give Trump his honorary black card. You want to go to that, brother. And in return, we are trading off Don Lemon. I just want to say, man, look, I appreciate everybody that stood by us and didn't count us out, man. We all got a history. I mean, you can look up all of our histories at J6. They try to use that against us now. Oh, they were this before, whatever. I used to be a gangbanger. I used to be a drug dealer when I was young, 21. 23, I got out of all of it completely and started my life of activism. I'm a dedicated father. And prison did not break me, like my man Mark said. Prison didn't do none of that. In fact, it made me a lot sharper. I read a lot inside of there. I met a lot of people, and I definitely got big. You know, can't see it was closed. You know, I'm right. But since coming home, my number one agenda: first, clean up our streets, in the way of being there for the youth, because that's what they need. You know. Killing the narrative that they put out there that we're supposed to all hate each other just because of what color our skin is. Killing that. And bringing awareness, man. Bringing awareness to the deception of the media. That is the biggest enemy. They are the ones that cause the rift. Okay? That's it. And with that, I want to say, shout out to my beautiful wife, Betty, I love you. All my babies, all my kids, I love you guys. I hope I'm making you proud. And to my man Mark, thank you. to all my J6 brothers and sisters. We got work to do now, baby. They let us out. We got work to do. We got to fill up America with. That's what we're going to do. That's what it is. Take my feet down. God bless you.
Wow. Now, do you guys like this event? You can feel the energy. Real quick, I'd like to thank Gary Franchi from Next News Network for filming this event live. Next News Network, thank you. And before I introduce, do you guys love this hotel? This is now becoming the MAGA headquarters. I'd like to thank the owners who are also great patriots, Jim and Telly Nagel. Stand up, the owners of the train. Now it's an honor to introduce to you a man who you've seen on the Joe Rogan show, a man who you've seen repeatedly on Laura Ingraham and Jesse Waters, and then Laura Ingraham and Jesse Waters, and Tucker Carlson, and then Laura Ingraham and Jesse Waters. That's right. A man that in the spring, when President Trump invited all of his potential vice presidential candidates that were rumors around, Laura Trump, Speaker Mike Johnson, Doug Burgum, Kristi Noem, essentially the entire cabinet was on stage, and then the president goes, Rod Blagojeveich, get up here, Rod Blagojeveich. I had the honor of bringing the governor, sneaking him down to Mar-a-Lago shortly after President Trump commuted his sentence on February 18, 2020. And he walked by and he goes, whoa, you look good. Whoa, whoa. And then he asked about Patty. And every time he sees Governor Blagojevich, he asks about Patty and he asks about the girls. And before I introduce him, it's a real funny story. This is actually a true story. And he starts asking Rod about Patty and the family, and then he pauses, right? True story. He pauses and he goes, you're still married to Patty, right? Yes, sir, Mr. President. He goes, good, because if I heard you divorced her, I'm sending your ass back to prison, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, the nation's highest profile Trumpocrat in America, the 40th governor of Illinois, Rod Blagojeveich.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Mark. Mark has a better Donald Trump than Donald Trump does. I want to thank him for the introduction, but I want to thank him again for bringing me home from prison. Trump and Mark. Mark played a big role in that, and of course I'm going to be profoundly grateful to him for as long as I live. Thanks, Mark. When he did that, I didn't even know who he was. I just got to know him the 2 years it took to get us back. I'm actually writing a book about that. He plays a role in the chapter called Fired and Freed by Donald Trump. And it was a up and down process because there was a hard political dynamic to it. But he was so steadfast and fantastic, and we had our ups and downs through all of that. And Kash would know what I'm talking about. It's a thing in prison that we call hope time, right? When you have this hope that maybe you're not going to do as long as these people want you to do. In my case, it was a 14-year sentence. What did they give you, Kash? You get 51 months. And it's a daunting thing. It's 14 years. But those last 2 years that I was there, when Mark got a hold of my wife Patty and played a role in convincing President Trump to take a look at my case and convince him to send me home, that was hope time. Those last 2 years flew by fast, and they weren't easy, but they sure did go fast. So I owe you coat time as well, buddy. Thanks so much for that. Did you just give me a standing ovation? Was that what that was? Thank you so much for that. I was going to ask Jessica Jackson if she could do what she does to get you all to stand up for me, because it's been so long since anyone ever gave me a standing ovation. I guess I don't have to bother you with that. Jessica Jackson, Jesse Jackson, Jesse the Reverend, and I knew each other pretty well, and I have really warm feelings for Reverend Jackson, but there's something about that name, Jesse Jackson and Jessica Jackson, that makes stirring speakers. She's really amazing, and she has that ability to be able to get you to say stuff back just like he does. Keep hope alive. Let me hear you. Keep hope alive, right? Fantastic, absolutely. Anyway, I just want you to know, I didn't do it. Everywhere I go, I can't help it. I gotta tell you, I didn't do it. And I never raised your taxes. Even though my party wanted me to, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do that either. Our country is facing a lot of difficulties, and I'll talk about that momentarily, but I just want to say a couple of quick things about how things have changed since I've come home. The Democratic Party that I was once in, I sort of haven't completely given up. I'm a Cub fan, you know how it is, for all those years. And they just never win. I hope Springs a current term. And then I go to prison, and then they won the World Series in 2016. Sons of bitches. I couldn't see it. So it's kind of hard to leave a team that you've you've been with for a long, long time. So it's still hard for me to say, well, I'm completely out. So I call myself a Trumpocrat. And I'm a Trumpocrat for a couple of reasons. Well, first of all, I have to answer a question. I went to Harvard to talk to the students at the John F. Kennedy School of Government a little over a year ago. And by the way, it's the only way to get into Harvard was to actually be the governor of Illinois and go to prison. Because when I applied right out of high school or college, I couldn't get in. I did my letter of rejection back on a Tuesday after sending that letter in on a Monday. I was invited to be there, and the kids are asking me, they're going through my record as a Democrat, and they're saying, how could you possibly be for Donald Trump? And my first answer was, let me tell you something, I'm a single issue voter. You get me out of jail, you got my vote. But I'm a lot more than a single issue voter, and in all seriousness, I know Donald Trump a little bit. Had some experience with him on a television show called Celebrity Apprentice. Best thing I ever did. But Donald Trump truly loves his country. And I know the stuff he's going through because I had to go through it myself. And to go through what he goes through, with the life that he had, billionaire real estate developer, #1 rated television show, entertainer, celebrity, that lifestyle that Trump and people like that live. And then to give all that up to be in the political arena and to be treated the way he's being treated by my party, well, the party that I was so involved in when I was governor, congressman, and state rep, and even by members of his own party. In other words, those who are part of the political establishment, the ruling elite, because they are in so many ways bipartisan, they play within certain boundaries. But for the most part, it's an inside game. And the rest of you, the rest of us, we have to pay for the stuff to keep their system and keep their gig going. It happens in Washington, it happens in state government in Springfield, Illinois. It's how it is. In too many cases, because people of goodwill run for office, and then they go to Washington when they get elected to Congress, or they go to Springfield when they're elected state rep, and suddenly the system co-ops them. And those systems are all about the people that are on the inside. It's former members of Congress who are now lobbyists. It's members of Congress who've been there for 1,000 years. It's speakers of the House in Illinois who've been there for 2,000 years. And I don't want to say anything to prejudice his circumstances right now, because that should be up to the jury to make that decision. But we are the highest tax state in the nation because of that kind of leadership. Highest tax state in the nation. And there's more than 2,000 taxi units in Illinois. You know why they did it that way? So they can just cheat and lie and pickpocket you. Pick your pocket. So you don't really know who's taxing you. So you can't really hold anybody accountable. All you know is you got less money. You're working longer, you're working harder, but you got less money. Because they find all kinds of ways to nickel and dime you and take your money. And what do they spend it on? Not nearly enough in the priorities that ought to be there to help the real people who are out there doing the work of the world, but instead the special interests and the insiders, the deep state. there is a deep state. Donald Trump is right when he talks about that. And he's so courageous, he's so strong, he's so patriotic on how he's willing to put himself out there and fight that deep state. So I'm for him largely because of that. Had he passed me by and I'd have looked home 4 years after Mark and President Trump helped me come home, I'd have still been for him. I was for him when I was in prison watching him and watching some of this go down when it all happened. In fact, I'll tell you a story. And Kash will appreciate this. I'm doing my job. They make us have jobs in prison. And I had a variety of different jobs. By the way, that lieutenant who told you not to, didn't want you guys to eat, that's unmerciful people, because the food in prison sucks. She was being merciful to you, Kash. I don't think she... Huh? Oh, that was pre... Oh. I don't want to malign our current governor, but he could do a little prison time just to kind of get his right. But it was May of 2015, I'm doing my job, I'm mopping floors. And I'm near the televisions in the prison I was in. You were from prison, right? They're segregated. You got the white TV, you got the black TV, and you got the Latino TV, Telemundo and Univision. No, this is how it is. It's a very segregated world, by the way, by design. And I write about this in a book that I'm writing, which is a real pain in the ass, because I'm reliving those experiences, and I'm having these recurring dreams that I'm still there. In fact, I had one the other night, that I was in a new camp. They sent me to a different camp. They first put me in a higher prison in real life. And then when you behave well and you're under 10 years of your sentence, then you get to go to the camp, which is not as hard as the prison behind the razor wire. I'm the only governor in American history who went from a 50,000 square foot governor's mansion to a 6 foot by 8 foot prison cell. I'm in there with Crips and Bloods and gangster disciples and Sinaloa cartel drug dealers who look up to the gang leader El Chapo like my daughters look up to Taylor Swift. There were murderers in my prison. There were a couple of guys who actually took human life. There were murderers in there. There were bank robbers who turned out to be actually very nice guys. The bank robbers, there's something really honest about those guys. Nothing hypocritical about it. They want your money, they're not bullshitting around. You're just gonna ask you, demand, give us the money. Nothing sneaky. You gotta watch the con men. But in that first prison I was in for nearly 3 years, there were about 950 guys. There was all those gangbangers that I talked about, bank robbers, there were about 400 sex offenders, which was shocking. That was a shocking experience to be able to see that. The men that committed murder, 2% white collar, 1 governor. And anyway, when I got out of there in 2015 and I'm in the camp and I'm sweeping floors, I look up to the television, CNN, where all the black guys watch television. And here's Donald Trump coming down an escalator with this beautiful woman with chestnut-colored hair. And I look at that, but I can't hear it because you gotta have headphones on to be able to hear the television. And I had my headphones on, the music to help me do my jobs, mop the floors. And so I decided to see what was going on because I knew Trump years before. I'd been on Celebrity Apprentice. So anybody remember that? Did you see me then? He almost always gets it right, doesn't he? He was so right to fucking fire me. He was so right. I couldn't open a computer. They had Joan Rivers was haranguing me for serving her a hamburger that was cold. Nice woman, by the way. But who'd have thought when I was on that show, and they filmed that in October 2009, about 10 months after I'd been arrested, who'd have thought then that when he fires me, that he'd be the President of the United States all those years later, I'd be mopping floors in prison. And I'd look up and I'd see him coming down the escalator with this beautiful woman with chestnut brown hair. And my first thought is, holy cow, he married her. Now what am I talking about? Well, then my mind raced back to many years before, 12 years before, when I was a brand new governor. And I want to apologize for doing this to you, Republicans, but I was the first Democrat governor in 26 years. Before me, it was really kind of a leaning Republican state. Certainly when it came to governors, that was certainly the case. And then me, and then I had the misfortune of getting re-elected. I want to thank all of you for voting against me in that second election. I'd have been more of you, I'd have never gone to prison. Unfortunately, weren't. Well, so to when I was riding high. And I'm now the governor of Illinois. At the time, believe it or not, before I became inmate number 408924424. You still remember your number?
Yeah.
You're never going to forget that, Cash. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, before I became inmate number 408924424, they were talking about me as a serious presidential candidate. I was like Obama before Obama 2 years later. They were looking for a new face from the Midwest to challenge Hillary because they figured she can't win a general election because she's just so darn unlikable. So they're looking for new faces. And all of a sudden I'm getting invited to go to Los Angeles and Hollywood where all the Democrat money is. They want to just give me campaign funds. They don't even know me. So I get to go out in June of 2003. I get to go to LA and I'm raising money. And somebody hands me a telephone to one of the fundraisers and it's the movie star James Caan. Remember him? Remember The Godfather? He gets on the phone, the first thing I say to him was, holy cow, let me tell you something. You were great the way you kicked Carlo's ass. Remember that scene? That guy beat his sister, and then James Caan, Sonny Corleone, beats him up. Remember that? Then not long after that, another guy passes me a phone. It's Sylvester Stallone. Hollywood, right? And I boxed the Golden Gloves in Chicago when I was growing up. And first time I ever got my name in the Chicago Tribune was when I was 17, 18, 1975. Golden Gloves, because the Tribune would sponsor the Golden Gloves. It was the only time the Tribune ever wrote anything nice about me. And so I had a boxing thing with Stallone because of Rocky, and I was able to quote his album cover from the movie Rocky. And he invites me to his house. So I get to go to his house. What a great guy, by the way. And then 6 months later, I'm invited to go to New York because Chuck Schumer's biggest fundraiser wants to meet me. Yeah. But I'm telling you, something was happening to me at the time. His biggest fundraiser wanted to meet me, and he hosted a weekend for me there, and they were raising money for me in New York. And so one night, Saturday night, in December 2003, he invites me and some of the entourage I had with me. Because when you're the governor, you can take entourages with you. And it included the state police security detail. And we went to Madison Square Garden to watch his fighter fight the heavyweight champion of the world, Klitschko, who's now the mayor of Kiev. And it was, you could see when his fighter got in the ring, he looked a lot less like a champion boxer and a lot more like Governor Pritzker. So you kind of knew this guy didn't train and he was going to get his ass kicked, and Klitschko knocked him out in halfway through the second round. And now it's time to leave. And one of the perks you get when you're the governor, you get the security detail with you. And there were generally about 5 or 6 of them with me, is that 2 or 3 go ahead and they kind of clear the path, and then the other ones stay with you. Now I didn't feel like I was at all, really never felt that, I was ever in danger or anything. And certainly not New York, because nobody knew me. They knew me more after I got arrested than when I was governor doing, I think, good things. So these guys go ahead, and I see the 2 guys commandeer a freight elevator. That's another thing you get when you're the governor. You don't have to wait in line. They move you in and out of places real fast. So they're commandeering a freight elevator, and I look ahead, and I see an extremely familiar face, Donald Trump, in that freight elevator in December 2003. This is 6 years before I do Celebrity Apprentice. And he's standing next to this beautiful woman with this jet black hair, very tall, obviously an international model. And my first thought, being a man, was along the lines of that beautiful woman he was with. And thinking, man, you gotta love this Donald Trump. And then I see my guys kicking him out of the elevator. And he complies because they're the police. So he stands outside the elevator, and she does too. And they're holding it open for me. I walk in, and there I am, 12 years later in prison, looking at Melania and saying she liked her hair. He married, that was Melania. And then I thought, those guys that worked for me kicked her and him out of that freight elevator. Thank God I invited them in to take a ride. Because if that backstabbing, selfish, sellout Obama ultimately sells me out for starting what I went to prison for and passes me by, which he ultimately did. My last line of defense, if I can't get justice in the courts, is Donald Trump. And sure enough, right? Well, I didn't do it, he didn't do it. They did to me at the AAA level to a Democratic governor what they thought they can get away with doing to a Republican candidate for president at the major league level. That's what's happening in America today. That's exactly what's happening in America today. When Jim talks about the threat to freedom, that's what's at stake. Freedom, and the gift of freedom is fragile. I've learned hard lessons about that. I never could imagine that prosecutors, the best and the brightest who go to the best schools, could be so rotten and dirty and corrupt and dishonest, or that judges could be that way too. I never knew that. But there was one area that knew it. And when all that stuff was coming down on me, and you got all that media around your house every single day, and you're doing the best you can to say, man, I didn't do it, I'm on every show I can get on. Thank goodness I was on those shows, because Trump saw me on the David Letterman show. That's how I got on Celebrity Apprentice. If I don't do that, I do the whole 12 and a half years, assuming good behavior, which I had. I want you to know, as your former governor, I was a well-behaved inmate. I followed the rules. And I did it when I was governor too, those sons of bitches. So I could never give in. And I knew they knew that what they were trying to criminalize against me was politics. Obama sent an emissary to me to make a political deal on election night, November 2008. And the very next day, I ran a long way and I'm laying on the floor, I'm talking to one of my aides, and I mentioned it, that this Balanoff, this youth labor union boss, came up to me the night before. It was a magical night. Now, I had my disappointments in Obama, but that night was magical. Put aside Obama, here's the United States of America living up to the promise of the Declaration of Independence. We've elected the first black person president of the United States. Now every black child can ask him one day fit, maybe I can be president too. That's what the American dream is all about. Everybody has a chance to reach as high as they can go. You need a little luck. You need a little working real hard. But that was a beautiful night. It was so magical. And so this guy comes up, wants to make a deal. Trump, he says, Obama wants Valerie Jarrett. Can I call you and come and see you? Let's talk about making a deal. So that's what we talk about, all kinds of potential scenarios. And somebody suggests, hey, you know what, maybe we ought to just make him happy. Give him whatever he wants. Let's not even make a deal, just give what he wants. So we discussed that. And I write in the book. You know, a couple of them thought we should do it. Most of us thought it was political malpractice because, to quote me, I got this thing and it's fucking golden and I'm not giving it up. Man, I sure hope I do something great in life, because if I don't change my narrative, that's in my obituary. But there was nothing corrupt about that. It was a political deal. These liars, and they twist it out of context. Yeah. They take it out of context. They won't let you play the rest of the tapes to this day. 98% of those tapes are under seal. And they get away with it with me, and I see what they're doing to Trump when he was president. Russian collusion. Yeah. That's another thing they do. They hire Madison Avenue and advertising firms that come up with these catchy names. Sale of the Senate seat, which incidentally was reversed by the appellate court after I'd been in prison for nearly 5 years. It was never a crime. I was right the whole time. It was never a crime. Then they kept me in there for 3 fundraising requests. No one even said I took a penny. I never took a gold bar. I never took a gold bar. And Menendez gets 11 years and I get 14 years. What the fuck is going on here? But they did it to Trump. Now let me get serious for a second. This is no laughing matter. It ain't so much about President Trump and what they did to him personally and to his family. It's a hard thing to have to deal with. Or me and my family, what they did to my little girls. I miss my daughters growing up. It's not even about us, it's about you and us together. We the people are scared for us. With these lies and these KGB Soviet-style politics. Now, my father fought the Nazis in World War II. He spent 4 years in a Nazi prisoner of war camp. And then when the war was over, he didn't return to his native Serbia, which at the time was Yugoslavia, because the country became communist. My father wanted a new life, to go to a place that was free. And so he waits in a refugee camp for 3 more years. My father did 7 years sheltering in place. I got him beat, I did it. But he waited for the Congress to pass the Displaced Persons Act. He gave my father and millions of others like him with these long and hard to pronounce last names. The America and live the American life. I had tremendous love for this country because it was a free place and a place where you can get ahead, a land of opportunity. I see my 3 Serbian brothers who helped underwrite this event here. These guys right here, fantastic. Living the American dream. They're working their asses off. They're doing great financially. They're tremendously successful. They're making America great again. Yeah. Making efforts in their work. They have opportunity. They're all freedom. And that gift is truly fragile. It's not a certainty. It's why our founding fathers, they knew enough about history when they put this country together to know that you have to divide power. They knew absolute power corrupts absolutely. They knew it's human nature to abuse power if you have too much of it. So they created this system of checks and balances. But what they didn't foresee, notwithstanding how wise they were, was that there would be this little part that came out of the executive branch of government. The executive branch that started in the 1920s, and it was called Federal Criminal Justice Agency, the FBI. And it was done because, understandably, they were going after Al Capone, the gangsters, and interstate commerce, and so they can enforce the laws and hold them accountable. What they didn't know, though, was that these guys in the FBI over time, little by little, this is what happens with people if they're not properly held in check, that they would abuse that power and begin to take some of the tactics they use against real criminals and use it in politics. And so they did it. They did it to me in 2008 and then 2011, and they've been doing it to President Trump. And this is why what he's going to do as president today is so important, to first save our democracy, and then to make America great again. And you, and everything you've done to help get him elected, and everything you're going to do, because you're organized and active and you haven't just given up as you just won. Because you cannot. You have to stay active and involved. Because this is a democracy, and so he doesn't get to do everything he wants to do just by himself. There are those checks and balances, but you got to put the pressure on those other people in the process to go along with your will, because you chose him to be your president. And when he tries to get things done, it runs into obstruction, which is going to certainly get from the Democrats, and even from some of those old school corporate country club, Cheney, Bush, Mitt Romney type Republicans. Right? He's going to get that. The voices of the people. The quiet voice of the silent majority needs to get loud, needs to be active, and needs to be heard. So I want to thank you as an American who loves this country. I'm going to wrap it up, and I just want to put some perspective on the troubles I've had and Kash. You know, I've been writing this book, and I had these recurring, dreams that, back in there. And, just the other day, in fact, yesterday morning, I get up and I read the morning, and I've got 190,000 words. I should get, the publisher wants it to be like 100,000, so I got a lot of cutting to do. And then I noticed when I tried to bring it down, I had new stuff, because I talk too fucking much, and that's what I do my ass in prison. But, I was reading about the part where I think about my family on the 15th of March 2012, early in the morning, and I kissed my little girls goodbye, and my little Annie was 8, and our little daughter Amy was 15, what that was like. And you write that stuff, and it affects me, because I will never forget what it was like. And I think about how hard that was, but I have to say, it was not easy, but let's keep in our prayers the families that lost their loved ones in that plane crash yesterday in Washington, those little girls and the skating team and all the others, and their families and their loved ones, and pray to God that He embraces them and shelters them in the shadow of His wings. Because so many other people have had it so much worse than I had it. And I have to keep reminding myself, I have so much to be grateful for and so many blessings. And I write a little bit about how hard it was to deal with that in prison. What my first night in prison was like when I'm facing 14 years and they shut those iron gates on you. You hear that sound, it's 10 o'clock, and all of a sudden you're swallowed up in darkness. And man, I got a long way to go here unless I get justice, but I've seen enough of that system to know it's rigged and I'm probably not going to get it, but I'm going to keep hope alive. And I have a tendency sometimes to feel a little bit blue when I write that, but I shouldn't. So many people have it so much worse. And it's a reminder to me and to all all of us that we should take nothing for granted, appreciate the blessings that we have, truly be grateful for the love that we have in our lives, and to do the best we can to lend a helping hand to someone else, to always fight for freedom, to defend freedom, because that is not given to us by government, that's given to us by God. So, look, I feel like, what the fuck? Maybe that learning experience was really good. Maybe it gave me a better perspective. Maybe I'm going to be stronger. I know I'm stronger as a result of it. And I know, as Kash said, that it empowers you with a sense of really trying to do things. And criminal justice reform, Jessica, for those of us who've been through the process, absolutely. And the black community, how they've been treated by the criminal justice system, that was the one place during those dark times where you could actually find love. Where I get to go to the black churches and they were warm and loving and didn't believe everything the man is saying, when the rest of the society generally did. But it's changed now. Trump has changed that. We're waking up in America to the real dangers in our country and the threat to freedom. And you are all freedom fighters of what you've been doing to try to fight to make America what it's supposed to be. Lincoln said it. He was a Republican. He was from Illinois. And, well, what the heck? I was a Reagan Democrat. I'm a Trumpocrat. And if Lincoln were running for something today, I'd vote for him too. So I want to close by thanking you for everything you're doing. Thank you for your warm reception. Thank you for that standing ovation. It was an honor. It was an honor to be your governor. It was an honor to wake up every day and have power and try to really do good things for everyday people. And so, may the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sunshine warm upon your face. The rain fall soft upon your fields. This is an Irish prayer, by the way. Until we meet again, may God hold you in the hollow of his hand. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Wow, that was a powerful event from all the speakers, all the way from the president of the Caucus, Rod Blagojeveich, Miss Jackson, and Kash. I hope that for someone that's watching this that has not seen it, that please let people know about Channel 12 TV network, and especially the Republican Town Hall Meeting channel. That's why I have this going. We need your support. Pass this along to people that you think may want to watch this whole event in its entirety, because there's a lot of good things that was said in there. So ponder things to ponder about, open up your eyes to what has been done, what our legal justice system is capable of and still doing. Get involved. You know, even if it's volunteering at your local GOP headquarters, making phone calls, going through the doors. And remember, not only support the general election, you need to support like the one coming up in April, your local elections, then the midterms, because that's what we build on. And we have to help also flip Chicago red and the state of Illinois red. So Jessica Jackson had a very good theme, flip Chicago red. And I just hope that this video of the actual event put on by the Republican or the caucus hits home a little bit. And in closing, I'd like to say thank you for watching. Pass the word. Thank you for watching Channel 12 TV network and the Republican Town Hall Meeting channel. And I hope to do many of these again. As for now, God bless, and you all have a wonderful year in life. Thank you.